At my sister's graduation party, Dad pointed at me and said, "He's just a visitor. The real support comes from her." My sister added, "Stop acting like you matter." I smiled softly and said, "Then you won't miss the $6,400 I send monthly." That night, I cut off the tuition wallet, froze their grocery card, and removed my name from their lease. By sunrise, they were locked out of their own house, and I had one final move left. My name is Steven. I am 32 years old. For most of my adult life, I have been the person my family called when the money ran short, when the bills piled up, when the car needed repairs. I was the dependable one, the backup plan, the emergency contact who never said no. My sister Chloe was 24, freshly graduated with a degree in marketing, and she had always been the bright star in our family constellation. I was the shadow that made her shine possible. I learned early that some children are born to be celebrated, while others are born to make celebration possible. Chloe received the attention, the praise, the carefully wrapped gifts on holidays. I received the reminder that someone had to be practical, that someone had to keep the lights on while everyone else dreamed. Dad worked construction when the jobs came through, and Mom cleaned houses 3 days a week, but the math never quite added up. The gap between what they earned and what they needed became my responsibility somewhere around my 22nd birthday. It started small. $100 here for groceries, $50 there for the water bill. Then it grew. Car insurance, credit card minimums, emergency room visits, textbooks for Chloe's college courses, rent supplements when Dad's back went out and the work dried up. I worked 2 jobs through my 20s, first as a hospital orderly on night shifts. Then I taught myself web development through free online courses during the hours when normal people slept. By 28, I had built a decent freelance business designing sites for small companies. By 30, I was pulling in enough to cover my own modest apartment and send home what they needed. The amount settled at $6,400 every month. I transferred it on the first, like clockwork, into the joint account Dad and I had set up years ago. He never thanked me directly. Mom would send a text sometimes that said appreciate it, but mostly the money just disappeared into their expenses like water into sand. Chloe never acknowledged it at all. In her mind, Mom and Dad simply provided for her, and I was just her older brother who lived across town and showed up for holidays. I told myself it was fine. Family takes care of family. I told myself their lack of recognition did not matter, that I was doing the right thing. But somewhere deep in my chest, in a place I did not examine too closely, I knew I was waiting. Waiting for the moment they would see me. Waiting for someone to say thank you. Waiting. To matter. The graduation party was supposed to be a small backyard thing. Chloe had finished her degree in 4 years, which Dad loved to mention because he never finished college himself. Mom had been planning it for weeks, texting me updates about the decorations, the food, the guest list. She asked me to pick up the cake on my way over. She did not ask me to help pay for anything this time, which should have felt like progress. Instead, it felt like being erased. I arrived at 3 in the afternoon with the cake balanced carefully in both hands. The backyard was strung with lights and filled with relatives I barely recognized. Aunts and uncles I had not seen in years. Chloe's college friends laughing in clusters near the folding tables. Dad stood by the grill wearing an apron that said King of the Cookout, flipping burgers with the confidence of a man who believed he had built everything around him through sheer willpower. "Steven, put that in the kitchen," Mom called from the porch. She did not look at me when she said it. Her attention was already back on the guests, making sure everyone had drinks, making sure Chloe was the center of every conversation. I set the cake on the counter inside. The kitchen smelled like potato salad and store-bought cookies. Through the window, I could see Chloe holding court near the picnic tables, showing off her diploma in its leather folder, accepting congratulations like she was collecting tithes. She looked happy. She looked like someone who had never worried about money, never wondered if the rent would clear, never eaten ramen for a week straight to make sure someone else could have new shoes. I went back outside. Nobody noticed. The sun started dropping toward the horizon, painting the yard in shades of orange and pink. Someone turned on the string lights. Dad clinked a beer bottle with a fork to get everyone's attention, and the conversations died down into expectant silence. He stood near the gift table with one arm around Chloe's shoulders, his face flushed with pride and alcohol. I just want to say a few words about my daughter, Dad began. His voice carried across the yard, deep and certain. Chloe worked her tail off for 4 years. She studied hard. She earned this degree all by herself, and me and her mother could not be prouder. People clapped. Chloe beamed. We sacrificed a lot to get her here, Dad continued. There were times when money was tight, times when we did not know how we'd make it work, but we did, because that's what parents do. We support our kids. We make sure they have what they need to succeed. My jaw tightened. I stood near the back fence, holding a paper plate with a burger I had not touched. And I want to thank everyone here who supported Chloe too, Dad said, gesturing broadly at the crowd. Her professors, her friends, everyone who believed in her. He paused. Then his eyes found me. For one brief second, I thought he might say something. Acknowledge the transfers. Mention my name. Instead, his expression shifted into something dismissive, something that made my stomach drop. Dad pointed at me with the beer bottle. Now, my son Steven over there, he's just a visitor. He shows up for the free food. Laughter rippled through the crowd, uncertain at first, then louder when people realized he was serious. The real support comes from her mother and me, Dad finished. We're the ones who made this happen. The words hit me like a fist. I stood frozen, the plate bending slightly in my grip. People glanced at me with amused smiles, like I was part of the joke, like this was normal family ribbing. I wanted to say something. I wanted to shout the numbers at him. $6,400 every single month for 10 years. But I did not. Chloe leaned into the microphone someone had set up near the tables. Honestly, yeah, she said, her voice bright and careless. Steven, stop acting like you matter here. This is my day. More laughter, lighter this time, but it still cut. I set the plate down on the nearest table. My hands were shaking. I walked toward the side gate without saying goodbye to anyone. Mom saw me leaving and frowned, but she did not follow. Dad had already turned back to the crowd, launching into another story about Chloe's childhood. I reached my car and sat in the driver's seat with the door open, staring at nothing. The engine was off. The neighborhood was quiet except for the muffled sounds of the party continuing behind me. My phone was in my hand before I realized I had pulled it out. I opened my banking app, stared at the scheduled transfer set for next month. $6,400. Approved and waiting. Then I opened my text messages, found the thread with Dad, scrolled up through months of one-sided conversations, me asking if they needed anything, me confirming transfers, me checking in. His replies were short. Fine. Got it. Thanks. I typed slowly. Then you won't miss the $6,400 I send monthly. I hit send. Then I started the car. I drove home in silence. The city lights blurred past my windows and I did not turn on the radio. My mind was too loud already. The humiliation sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold. But underneath it, something else was building. Clarity. The kind that comes when you finally stop pretending. My apartment was small, clean, and mine. I had bought the furniture myself, paid the rent on time every month without asking anyone for help. The walls were painted a soft gray, and I had installed floating shelves for my books. It was not much, but it was built on my own labor, my own choices. Nobody could take it from me. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The blue light filled the dark room. My phone buzzed twice. Text messages. I ignored them. First, I pulled up the joint account, the one I shared with Dad. The transaction history stretched back years. Rows and rows of transfers. Every first of the month, like a heartbeat. $6,400. Sometimes more when emergencies hit. I scrolled through the entries, watching the numbers blur together. Over $76,000 a year. For 10 years. I did the math in my head and felt sick. $760,000. More than $750,000. I had funded Chloe's entire college education. I had kept the roof over their heads. I had made sure they never went without electricity, without food, without the basic dignity of stability. And tonight, in front of everyone, I was a visitor. Someone who showed up for free food. I clicked through to the settings, found the scheduled transfer for next month. Hovered the cursor over the cancel button. My hand did not shake this time. I canceled it. Then I went further. I removed my name from the joint account entirely. Withdrew my access. The system asked me to confirm twice. I confirmed both times. Next, I opened the credit card account. The grocery card I had added them to 3 years ago when Mom's hours got cut. I was the primary holder. They were authorized users. I pulled up their profiles and clicked remove. The system processed it instantly. Then I searched my email, found the lease agreement for the house they rented. The landlord had added me as a co-signer 4 years ago when Dad's credit was not enough. My name sat there on the document, legally responsible, invisible, but weight-bearing. I drafted an email to the property management company. I am writing to request the immediate removal of my name from the lease agreement for the property located at 4721 Maple Avenue. I am no longer financially responsible for this residence and wish to terminate my co-signer status effective immediately. Please confirm receipt of this request and provide documentation of the change. I attached a copy of my ID and hit send. My phone buzzed again, then again. I glanced at the screen. Messages from Dad, from Mom, from Chloe. I did not open them. Not yet. There was one more thing. The tuition payment system for Chloe's old student account. She had graduated, but there were fees, lab costs, library fines. Small amounts she had never bothered to pay because the bills came to the email address linked to my credit card. I logged into the university portal and removed my payment information, changed the contact email to hers. I leaned back in my chair. The apartment was still silent. Outside, the city hummed with its usual night sounds. Cars, distant sirens, the low murmur of people living their lives. I was not angry anymore. Anger was too hot, too chaotic. What I felt was colder, clearer. I had built their stability with my own hands, transfer by transfer, payment by payment, and they had never seen it. So now I would let them see what life looked like without it. I finally opened the messages. Dad, what the hell is this supposed to mean? Mom, Steven, call me right now. Chloe, are you seriously throwing a tantrum because of a joke? I typed one message and sent it to all three of them. I'm just a visitor. Visitors don't pay rent. Then I turned off my phone. I turned my phone back on at 7 in the morning. 43 missed calls, 62 text messages, 3 voicemails. I did not listen to any of them. Instead, I got dressed, made coffee, and left for the coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment where I usually worked on client projects. The place was quiet in the mornings. Wooden tables, soft jazz playing through old speakers. The barista knew my order and had it ready before I reached the counter. I sat in the corner with my laptop and opened my email. The property management company had already replied. Mr. Bennett, we have received your request to be removed as a co-signer on the lease for 4721 Maple Avenue. Please note that per the terms of the lease agreement, removal of a co-signer requires either the remaining tenants to qualify independently or the termination of the lease. We will contact the primary tenants to discuss options. Please allow 3 to 5 business days for processing. I read it twice. Then I archived it and moved on. My phone started ringing. Dad. I declined the call. It rang again 30 seconds later. Mom this time. Declined. Then Chloe. Declined. A text came through from Dad. We need to talk. This is serious. I typed back. I agree. It is serious. You'll hear from the landlord soon. Another text. Mom this time. Steven, please. Let's not do this. We can talk about what happened. I stared at the message. The word please stood out. I could not remember the last time she had said please to me about anything. It was always, can you, or we need, or Steven handle this. Never please. I did not reply. The grocery card cancellation would hit them today. They usually did the big shopping trip on Wednesday mornings. It was Tuesday. Tomorrow, when Mom tried to check out with a cart full of food, the card would decline. She would have to put things back. She would have to explain to the cashier that there was some kind of mistake. She would have to call me. I took a sip of coffee. It was still too hot, but I did not care. The tuition account changes would take longer to notice. Chloe had automatic payments set up for her remaining fees. Those payments would fail in 2 weeks when the next billing cycle hit. She would get an email. then a phone call from the university, then late fees. The lease situation was the biggest piece. Without me as a co-signer, Dad and Mom would have to re-qualify on their own income. They would not pass. Their credit was damaged from years of late payments and maxed cards. The landlord would either demand a new co-signer or start eviction proceedings. I had not planned this out in advance. There was no blueprint. But now that I had started, each step revealed the next one naturally. I was not trying to destroy them. I was simply removing myself, becoming the visitor they said I was. My phone rang again. I let it go to voicemail. Around 9, got an email from the bank confirming that my name had been removed from the joint account. Dad no longer had access to anything connected to me. The balance in that account was $47, just enough for maybe 2 days of gas. I ordered another coffee and opened a new project file. A client needed a website refresh. Simple work, clean layouts. I lost myself in the code for a couple hours, letting the logic and structure calm my mind. At 11:30, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I almost declined it. Then I realized it might be the property management company. I answered. "Mr. Bennett, this is Scarlett from Crestview Property Management. I'm calling regarding the lease at 4721 Maple Avenue." "Yes. We spoke with the primary tenants this morning about your co-signer removal request. Unfortunately, they do not qualify for the lease on their own income. We've given them 2 options. They can either provide a new qualified co-signer within 10 days, or we can begin the process to terminate the lease. I wanted to make sure you understood that this may result in them needing to vacate the property." "I understand." "Okay, just wanted to confirm. We'll follow up with them directly. Have a good day, Mr. Bennett." The call ended. I set the phone down on the table and stared at the screen until it went dark. They came to my apartment that night. I heard the knocking before I saw them through the peephole. Dad, Mom, both of them standing in the hallway, with expressions I had never seen before. Panic mixed with anger, mixed with something that almost looked like fear. I opened the door but left the chain lock on. "Stephen, let us in," Dad said. His voice was tight. "Why?" "Because we need to talk, face to face, like adults." I almost laughed. "You had the chance to talk to me like an adult at the party. You chose differently." Mom stepped forward. Her eyes were red. "Please, we didn't mean it the way it sounded." "Yes, you did." "The landlord called," Dad said, his voice rising. "They said you pulled your name off the lease. They said we have 10 days to find someone else or we're out. That's between you and the landlord." "Stephen, this is our home." Mom's voice cracked. "Where are we supposed to go?" "I don't know. Maybe ask Chloe. She's the one who matters, right?" Dad's face went red. "You're really going to punish us over a joke? You're that petty?" "It wasn't a joke. You meant every word. And now you're learning what life looks like without the visitor." "We raised you," Dad shouted. "We fed you. We kept a roof over your head. You owe us." I felt something inside me go very still, very cold. "I owed you? Dad, I've sent you $76,000 a year for 10 years. I paid for Chloe's college. I paid your rent. I kept your lights on. I bought your groceries. I covered your car insurance. Do the math. I don't owe you anything. You owe me." Mom made a small sound, a gasp or a sob, I could not tell. "That money was a gift," Dad said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "No, it was survival, your survival, and I was happy to help because I thought it meant something. I thought it made me part of the family, but I'm just a visitor, remember? Visitors don't pay rent. Visitors don't fund your entire life." "So what, you're just going to let us lose the house?" Mom asked quietly. "You're not losing the house. You're losing me as your safety net. There's a difference. Find another co-signer. Get better jobs. Cut your expenses. Do what every other adult does when they can't afford something." Dad stepped closer to the door. "You open this door right now." "Or what?" He did not have an answer. "Go home," I said. "Figure it out. You've got 10 days. I closed the door, locked it, stood there listening as they argued in the hallway. Mom was crying. Dad was yelling. Then their voices faded. The elevator dinged. Silence returned. I walked to the window and looked down at the street. Watched them get into their car. Watched Dad slam the door. Watched them drive away. My phone buzzed. Chloe. Mom just called me crying. What did you do? I typed back slowly. I stopped acting like I matter. She started typing. Stopped. Started again. Then nothing. I sat on my couch in the dark. The city lights filtered through the blinds in pale stripes. I did not feel victorious. I did not feel righteous. I felt empty. Like I had been carrying a weight for so long that removing it left me unbalanced. But I also felt something else. Something I had not felt in years. Free. I woke up to 17 new messages. Most from Chloe. A few from aunts and uncles I barely spoke to. One from a cousin who said the family was worried about me. Nobody asked if I was okay. They asked when I would fix this. I made coffee and opened my laptop. If they wanted to pretend I had not contributed, I would give them proof they could not ignore. I created a new folder on my desktop and labeled it The Visitor. Then I started pulling documents. Bank statements going back 10 years. Every transfer highlighted, every amount, every date. I took screenshots of the joint account transaction history before I had removed myself. Downloaded PDF statements, built a spreadsheet with the monthly totals. Then I gathered the other evidence. The credit card statements showing the grocery card charges, the lease agreement with my name as co-signer, emails from the university about tuition payments made from my account, receipts for car repairs I had covered, medical bills I had paid. It took 3 hours. When I finished, the folder contained 47 documents, proof of every dollar, every sacrifice, every moment of invisible support. I created a PDF summary, simple and direct. Financial support provided by Stephen Bennett, 2015 to 2025. Total transferred $764,000. Monthly average, $6,400. Additional emergency payments, $84,000. Grand total, $848,000. I listed the categories: rent supplements, tuition, groceries, utilities, car expenses, medical costs, credit card payments. At the bottom, I wrote one line. This is what a visitor contributes. I'm done visiting. I saved it, stared at the file. Then I attached it to an email addressed to Dad, Mom, and Chloe. The subject line was simple. The real support. I hovered over the send button. This was it. Once I sent this, there was no taking it back. They would see everything. They would know exactly what they had dismissed, what they had taken for granted. I clicked send. Then I forwarded the same email to the family group chat, the one with all the aunts and uncles, the cousins, the people who had laughed at the party when Dad called me a visitor. I wanted them all to see. My phone started ringing within 5 minutes. I turned it off completely, removed the SIM card, placed it in my desk drawer. For the rest of the day I worked, client projects, code, design revisions. I buried myself in the work because it was the only thing that made sense. Logic, structure, problems with clear solutions. At 6 p.m, I went for a walk. The city was transitioning into night, streetlights flickering on, people heading home from work. I walked for an hour without a destination, just moving, breathing, existing in a space where nobody knew me or needed anything from me. When I got back to my apartment, I reinstalled the SIM card. The phone exploded with notifications, calls, texts, voicemails, emails. I opened the email thread. Replies had stacked up. An uncle. Stephen, I had no idea. An aunt. Why didn't you ever say anything? A cousin. This is insane. Mom. We need to talk, please. Dad. Nothing. Chloe. You're making this so much worse than it needs to be. I read through them all. Then I closed the app. There was one final move. The one I had been holding back. The one I had not told anyone about. The house at 4721 Maple Avenue was not just their rental. 4 years ago, when Dad's credit tanked and they were facing eviction, I had done something I never told them about. I had worked with the landlord directly, made an arrangement, a private agreement that if they ever failed to pay, I would cover it. I had essentially become a silent guarantor on a rent-to-own contract, which meant legally I had claim to equity in the property. I pulled up the documents I had stored in a locked folder, the agreement, the payment records, the landlord's signature. I called the landlord. Mr. Patel, this is Stephen Bennett. We need to discuss the property at 47 and 21 Maple Avenue. The office smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. Mr. Patel sat across from me with the contract between us on the desk. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and the tired expression of someone who had dealt with too many tenant disputes. So let me make sure I understand this correctly, he said, tapping the document. You've been making supplementary payments on this property for 4 years under a side agreement with me, payments that were meant to prevent eviction and build toward potential equity. That's correct. And now you want to exercise the equity claim clause. Yes. He leaned back in his chair. Mr. Bennett, I'll be honest with you. This is unusual. Most people in your situation would try to work something out with the family first. I tried that for 10 years. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. According to the terms we agreed on, you've contributed approximately $48,000 beyond the standard rent payments. That gives you a 12% equity stake in the property if we were to calculate it as a rent-to-own situation. Which means if your father and mother cannot secure a new cosigner and the lease terminates, you have the option to either buy them out of the remainder or force a sale of the landlord's interest to a third party. Either way, they lose occupancy. And if I choose to buy them out, then you become the primary leaseholder. They would need your approval to stay, or you could choose to not renew their tenancy. I sat with that for a moment. The power to decide whether they stayed or went. The power to be the one holding the keys instead of the one funding from the shadows. What do you recommend? I asked. Mr. Patel shrugged. That's not my call, but if you want my personal opinion, I've seen a lot of families destroy themselves over money and property. Whatever you decide, make sure it's something you can live with in 10 years. I nodded. I need to think about it. You've got 8 days before the lease decision is final. Let me know. I left the office and sat in my car. The sun was setting again. Seemed like the sun was always setting lately. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the messages I had been ignoring. Mom had sent a long text, apologizing, explaining, begging. Chloe had sent nothing since my email. Radio silence. Dad had finally responded to the email. Just one line. You've made your point. But that was the thing. I had not made a point. I had simply stopped. Stopped paying. Stopped caring. Stopped being invisible. I drove to the house. Parked across the street. The lights were on inside. I could see movement through the windows. Mom in the kitchen. Dad in the living room. Normal evening things. Except now there was a countdown. 8 days. Then what? I sat there for 20 minutes. Just watching. Trying to feel something. Anger, satisfaction, regret. But mostly I just felt tired. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Stephen? A woman's voice I did not recognize. Yes? This is Donna Foster. I'm the Dean of Student Accounts at the university. I'm calling about Chloe Bennett. There are outstanding fees on her account totaling $1,800. The contact information we had on file bounced back, so I'm reaching out to you as the previous payer of record. I'm no longer responsible for those fees. Oh, I see. Well, the account is currently on hold, which means we cannot release her official transcripts or diploma until the balance is cleared. Is there someone else we should contact? Try Chloe directly. Her number is on file. We have. She's not responding. Then I guess she'll figure it out when she needs her transcripts for job applications. There was a pause. Mr. Bennett, I understand there may be family circumstances here, but this could seriously impact her career options. Then she should have thought about that before telling me I don't matter. I hung up. Another crack in the foundation. Another consequence rippling out. I started the car and drove home. When I got to my apartment, I made a decision. I called Mr. Patel. I've decided. I want to exercise the buyout option. You're sure? Yes, draw up the paperwork. I'll be the primary leaseholder, and I will not be renewing their tenancy. Understood. I'll have everything ready in 3 days. Thank you. I ended the call. Then I sent one final message to the family group chat. By the end of the month, I will own the lease to 14721 Maple Avenue. You have 30 days to vacate. I suggest you start packing. I hit send. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. They left on a Thursday. I watched from my car as the moving truck pulled away from 4721 Maple Avenue. Mom and Dad had found a smaller place on the east side. 2 bedrooms, older building, lower rent. Chloe had moved in with a friend after the university froze her credentials. She would have to pay the fees eventually, but that was her problem now. The house stood empty. I had signed the final paperwork a week earlier. The property was mine now. At least the lease was. Mr. Patel had been professional through the whole process. No judgment, just documents and signatures and keys changing hands. I did not move into the house. I did not want it. The space carried too much history, too much weight. Instead, I listed it for sublease. A young couple with a baby took it within 3 days. They needed a fresh start. I gave them a good rate. The money I saved from not sending $6,400 every month went into an investment account. I was building something now, something that belonged only to me. My phone stayed quiet. Mom sent a text once a week, just checking in, trying to rebuild some kind of bridge. I responded occasionally, short answers. I was not ready to forgive, but I was not interested in permanent war either. Dad never reached out. I heard through a cousin that he had taken a job at a warehouse. Overnight shifts, better pay, but harder work. He was managing, barely. Chloe finally paid her university fees. She called me 2 weeks after they moved out. I got a job, she said. No greeting, no apology. Congratulations. It's entry level, marketing coordinator. Pays okay. Good. Silence on the line. Stephen, She stopped, started again. I didn't understand. I didn't know how much you were doing. I know. Does that matter? I thought about it. I don't know. Yet. Fair. More silence. I have to go, she said finally. Okay. She hung up. I stared at the phone. It was not closure. It was not reconciliation. It was just a moment of acknowledgement. Maybe that was enough for now. I met with Mr. Patel one last time to close out the final paperwork. He handed me a check. The equity payout from the lease transfer. $12,000. What will you do with it? He asked. I'm not sure. Maybe take a trip. Maybe just save it. I've never really spent money on myself before. He smiled. Might be time to start. I left his office and walked to the coffee shop where I used to work on client projects. The same barista was there. She remembered my order. I sat in the same corner with my laptop. But this time, I was not working on someone else's website. I was looking at travel sites, pictures of mountains, beaches, cities I had never seen. For the first time in 10 years, I had space to think about what I wanted, not what they needed, not what was responsible, just what I wanted. I booked a flight to Colorado. 2 weeks, solo trip, hiking, quiet, distance. The night before I left, I got a text from Mom. I know you probably won't respond, but I want you to know I'm sorry. For all of it, you deserve better. I stared at the message. Then I typed back. Thank you. I'm going to be away for a while. We can talk when I get back. She replied immediately. I like that. I turned off my phone, packed my bag, set my alarm for 4 a.m. The airport was quiet when I arrived. I checked in, went through security, sat at the gate watching the sun rise through the tall windows. When they called my boarding group, I picked up my bag and walked toward the plane. Each step felt lighter, like I was shedding something. Old expectations, old roles, the weight of being invisible. I found my seat, window side, buckled in, watched the ground crew loading luggage below. The plane pushed back from the gate. The engines roared. We climbed into the sky, and the city fell away beneath us. Tiny houses, tiny cars, tiny people living their tiny, complicated lives. I closed my eyes, breathed. For the first time in 10 years, I was not the dependable one. I was not the backup plan. I was not the emergency contact. I was just Stephen, and that was enough.
Did you enjoy my story? What a journey it has been. I truly wonder, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have chosen silence to keep the peace, or would you have done what I did to reclaim your dignity? Let's meet in the comments below. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts. I'm reading every single one. Which city are you listening from tonight? If my story resonated with you, you can support me and help me bring more stories like this to the world by sending a super thanks. Your sweet support means the world to me and allows me to continue this journey with all of you. On the screen now, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend you watch next. There are so many more on my channel, each with its own lessons and triumphs. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Thank you for being here with me. Until the next story, with love and respect.